guess there's also something else that I want to say, which is that I feel like bad or young souls get given to parents who are most similar to them. Okay, there could be a lot of inheritance through genes. If your parents have a certain number of genes, I feel like that can influence how you are and what type of person you are, and in your upbringing, how they bring you up, what they teach you, how they teach you, what kind of morals they teach you. This also can affect you. But I do feel there's also something spiritual to it, which is that a soul develops and changes and evolves and then dies and then gets a new body and it lives on. And how your soul is, I guess it gets given to a parent that's similar to yours. So if I was to look at my parents' bloodline, I feel like I can say something about this, which is that my dad came from a sort of middle class family. I never met my real granny, or my blood granny, should I say? And my granddad remarried a woman called May, who I really like and I've had lots of respect for, because she always gave me stability at Christmas, and I felt like I had order from her. She was very good. She's good at a lot of things. I think she does have some type of mental illness because she's got this strong devotion towards Jesus, and I can't really understand that. How can someone devote their life towards someone they know nothing about? But when I analyze it, I recognize that she has a strong community within the religion and the organization. She is bought into the organization. She likes the idea of traditions and order, going to church every morning, believing that what the preachers say are true, having a book that is supposed to be from God. She's bought into this whole thing, and it gives her stability, order, and a peace of mind, even though it's kind of lies. But she doesn't question it. But my dad's family is obviously more developed. I feel like a lot of them are. If I was to analyze my dad, I think he's actually. I feel like his first life, he lived in China, building some sort of big first stone bridge. I feel like he lived to a very old age in that life, and then I felt like he had another life where he actually became a chariot driver, and I think I see him as an old person in that life too. And I feel like part of his inspiration of how to create this bridge might have actually come from some sort of spiritual intuition about the future and about this is his path. He wants to go into driving, and for him to drive he needs to build bridges, and so I feel like part of that inspiration for that bridge actually might have come from what he wanted, to travel properly. And so he had another life, and then I do feel there was another life as maybe a baby girl that died. A lot of children died very young age, so I feel like this might happen to a lot of people. A lot of babies die, but this is just it's just something that happens, unfortunately. But it's I think babies dying is more about the training of the mother to try and learn how to look after kids better. Pregnancy is painful, but I feel like part of the pain is actually to make you not want to sacrifice your kids, or not want to have them bad things happen, or for them to die. That part of the horrible birth is to make you say, I don't want to go through this again, so I'm going to try extra hard to keep my kids alive. Birds have babies, a bunch of eggs each year, and if one of their birds die, it's fine, they'll just have it next year. Whereas if pregnancy is hard, it makes you not want to get rid of your kid because you worked really hard to get it. But yes, I just wanted to say that. And then I do think there was another life where he might have I see a vision of like a young boy learning how to drive a real vehicle and being so happy about it, but then dying young. But he did actually get to drive. But yeah, this is kind of why he got birthed into, my granddad he died in 2012, so just before I found out that I was God. But yeah, he wouldn't have accepted that I was God. He didn't like my mum. He thought my mum was mad. But my dad is very kind of antisocial. He's slightly autistic, and not very sociable. Just and so yeah, he that's kind of his upbringing, but at the same time, I can see why he got, my granddad was a chemist, and he I don't know anything about my grandmother that he first married, but he definitely liked order. He definitely liked doing things the proper way, reading instructions. He was far more evolved than my mum. When it comes to my mum's family, my granddad died when I was 6. I don't know anything about him, but I know he died smoking on the toilet, and that's kind of about the only thing I remember. I also remember the only time I've ever seen my mum really upset before my sister's children was when he died. I think I've seen my mum upset all the time ever since the new kids have come around. But yeah, my my mum's family came from a very poor background. They didn't have a toilet inside the house. There was no central heating. It was just put on more blankets or coats. Actually, I think there were coat blankets, blankets with arms. I think they called them. So she's come from a very poor background. But yeah, her granddad was adopted, but he had 12 brothers and sisters. 3 of them were kept by the mother until they got to a certain age. I think it was like 8 or 9, and then got adopted. So was adopted, but still got to know who the parents were. But the parents were singers and wanted to travel around. I don't know anything about them other than that they were singers. But yeah, apparently he has 12 brothers and sisters, and I've heard that the majority of them ended up being homeless. So I'm assuming that everyone from my mum's family, from what I've been told, are not worth finding out about who they are. But I know there could be a lot of them. Did they go on to have kids? I don't know. I know my mum has a brother and a sister, so I've got an auntie and an uncle, but I barely saw the auntie. I had very little contact because I called my sister by a middle name. It was either Emily or Dell. My auntie didn't like me calling my sister. It was either Emily or Dell because it's the same middle name as her daughter. I didn't know that. My mum tried to tell her, and she didn't believe that she would let her 4-year-old daughter, because I was 4 at the time my sister was born, she didn't believe that anyone would let your 4-year-old daughter name their sister. So I don't know, but I never spoke to her again until I was like 12. So that was it's a difficult situation, and she's basically blocked me out of her life most of the time. But I don't know. Because of all this, I just kind of feel like there's a lot of mental illness in my mum's family. And I think if I look to find out the real cause or the root as to why there's so much mental illness, my mum is not stable. She's a lot more able to rationalize. She's a lot more, doesn't want to waste money, less wasteful. She's I don't want to say more evolved, because actually I think she's younger than all of them. I think she's had less. This is her first life. I believe my uncle's had 2. My sister's had 4. Is it? I think it's 4. My dad's had. I think he's in his 3rd life, but it actually works out to be 1, 2, 3 lives and a baby. I don't count the baby. So that's kind of like 3 lives, and I think 2 of them actually lived quite old. So I think my dad, out of all of them, is actually the most evolved because of number of ages lived. But yeah, I feel like that shows why they're less likely to be mental illness in my dad, because I think he's had 2 lives where he made it to 70. And if he had 2 lives that made it to 70, that kind of means that he's like 140 plus the 20 years. So that's 160. If my dad's 160, my mum's, she's 70 now, but when she had me and Sophie, she would have been 30 and 34. Or was it? Yeah, I think it was 31 and 35. She had them quite. She had me and my sister quite late. But yeah. The children would be selected according to. I mean, I know I was only 20, because I died at 26 in my first life, and I think I was registered from that. So, but yeah, I think sometimes there's such thing called a fast developer, which is where you have only a very short number of years, but you just develop a lot faster than other people. curiosity, drive to want to achieve a sense of vision of the future. I feel like something like this might make a person's higher score. So even though I was a savage, even though I didn't have education, I feel like I might have scored a little bit higher because of visions of perhaps being the one that invented fire. So as part of that, I was allowed to have my dad, who I think is a lot older than some. But, I think that this is, when I'm trying to work out, why parents or why children go to certain parents, this is how I analyze it. I think, if you do really well, even if you are only on your second life, or even if you are only, if you've been alive for 36 years and then you've died, and now you're looking for a new body, you might actually get a person who's 140 plus. My dad's 70 now, so he's not actually 160. He's 160 plus the ages of what he is now. So he's actually probably 200-300 years old. So, but this kind of trying to analyze the matrix and the computer that we're living in, and how souls are determined. But yeah, if I think about my mum's family, I feel like a lot of them are, if my uncle has, I think he was a doctor in his past life, but he was a mental health specialist, but he didn't really know what he was talking about. No one really knew what they did. No one knew the cures of mental illness, but I think he had a study towards it. But yeah, if he died when he was like 40, has he any other lives? I don't think so, actually, to be honest. I don't know. He might have had another one where he was a child. So there might have been like 2 or 3. But I think those were more child deaths, and somehow he made it to the doctor status. Because I feel he actually did quite well in that doctor status. But yeah, it wasn't proper doctoring they didn't know much back then. It wasn't his fault. It was just what people were like. But if I try and analyze his past and my sister's past, I think my sister did very, very well. But I think that was, in a way, I feel like it was almost a reward for the crappy life that I don't know. But yeah, I think the past, people get put given in certain places, in certain authorities, because of good deeds that they do in the past, or the level of developments that they have. And I think I just want to kind of talk about this, because I feel like, a lot of people would want to know where mental illness comes from, and this is my telling. My telling of where mental illness comes from is just souls that have not lived that many lives, hence have not figured out many things. My mum has an ability to want to say, but my sister had that ability too. But this actually came from a need to want to copy me and to copy my mum. So my sister had this. My uncle doesn't have that, because he wasn't really around my mum. There's a 10-year gap between my mum and my uncle, and because my mum left home at a very young age, the majority of my uncle's life, my mum wasn't actually in her life, so it wasn't in his life. So he didn't really adapt or want to be influenced by my mum that much, because she wasn't around. But the dad was. But yeah, if the dad has 11 brothers and sisters, and yet was only happy to have him in contact with 2 of them, and was saying about the other 9, is that the other 9 are bad, don't look for them, they're all homeless, they'll steal from you. And apparently I've heard a story that they did come and visit him once or twice, and they did steal from him. But it's hard to know what's the truth and what's not when it comes to people that can see things or not necessarily know the truth. Sometimes it's hard to work out what the truth is, because you hear a story but you wonder, is this a delusion or is this the truth? If he was telling him not to meet these people because they're going to steal from you, sometimes if you're mentally ill and you've got delusions, having that thought put in your head might actually make you believe that it's the truth when it wasn't the truth. It isn't something that happened, but it's just something that you thought would happen. I don't think my sister told that lady that she would burn the house down, but because she thought that she might, maybe she actually did believe that my sister said that. It's likely that that people, if they want to believe something, or if they think that it did happen, they can start creating things that didn't happen and make out that it did happen. you know, I think the problem is there's a lot of people that are under 200 years old, and mental illness is formed when people's soul hasn't been properly established. You know who you are by what you like, what motivates you, and it's not just that, but your ability to rationalize and analyze, and this comes through learning and experience and years, and if you don't have those years, then it's hard to process what's important. Money is not important, but if you're going to start thinking that £4.50 is nothing, and you can just buy a burger, even though you just had something, even though you've had a full roast dinner and you're really not hungry, but you just want to have a burger just to get rid of the £4.50. If you start having this kind of mentality, it's not logical, and it's money is important. It's better to buy that burger when you actually need it, when you're actually hungry, when you're actually going to appreciate it. And yeah, part of development is learning that if you make mistakes, it's not going to benefit you in the long run, and you need to learn how to not make mistakes, not make bad choices. Homelessness is not a choice, but if you are going to be making stupid things by saying, oh, it's only a couple of pounds, and I don't want this, but I don't want the couple of pounds either, if you're going to start thinking like that, then you are going to make yourself broke. And I think the reason why he thinks like this is because the government is giving him money, and he's actually thinking that I don't want money in the bank because the government's just going to take it away. So in a way, I feel like the government's brainwashing him into spending money. But at the same time, if he's going to be spending it stupidly, then the government does need to be giving him money just so that he actually has money, and it doesn't just... but yeah, the problem is getting people to think rationally, properly, and maybe fixing schools or school education is the way to fixing this. Teach people how to be logical, how to be rational in your choices. Teach people, if teachers at school could learn from mentally ill people what they're doing wrong, and then teach the kids not to think in the same sort of mindset or belief system that these people have. Finding out what the belief system of the homeless people are is also... a lot of people might not call themselves homeless because they might say, I'm a couch surfer. I've got a bunch of friends and they're happy to, I do some work for them. They allow me to sleep on my sofa, and therefore I'm not homeless. And therefore, but if you have the mindset of, oh, I think it's fun to sleep just rough. I want to experience this. I want to, if you want to do that, then I feel like, why do you want to do that? And I can't, going through it is going to make you not want to do it. But yeah, if you didn't realise that would happen, my sister generally did actually want to try being a homeless person. Now, I knew she would do it once or twice and not want to do it again, but she didn't know that. Why didn't she know that she would do it once and not want to do it again? Maybe I learned that through my memory of being a cave woman, the shock of not one. Actually, I think actually a lot of this is, I did a walk when I was 16 in the Moroccan Alps. It was like a school trip, and we were camping in the Moroccan Alps, and each night got worse. Some of them were big rocks, some of them giant ants. We slept in a big thing full of giant ants, and they were everywhere, and the guides were just like, yep, this is where we're sleeping. I'm like, what are you talking about? There's giant ants everywhere, we can't sleep here. And then there was nowhere to pee in most of the places. I don't know, but those nights, even though I hated them, I kind of liked them, but it just gave me huge memories of living in the wild, and that kind of gave me a huge drive to be like, no, I do not ever want to do this. And I feel like if you don't remember being a cave person, or if you don't remember going through bad experiences, you might not have the shock to realize, no, I do not want to go through that again. Whereas if you had the shock of, if you've been made homeless, and then say you come across in your next life and then you have a day of it, or you have maybe even a taste or something that might cause homelessness. You would think, no, I don't want that to happen. This woman is about to chuck me out, and I've been chucked out before, and I don't want that to happen. I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that doesn't happen. But if you lack experience, even if it's of a past life or a soul, if you lack that experience, the danger of what will happen if it happens, it's not there. It's like, you could say don't think that all homeless people are violent drug addicts, but say if you did try and help someone and they ended up punching you, even though you might die and not even remember that, if that experience was so shocking, it might make you be like, I'm gonna stay away from these people. And I feel like that's why I would be like this. I think if I was a cave woman in my past life, I'm sure I did probably have rocks thrown at me at different times. And I feel like there's sometimes you can't help people. And if I had an experience where I was a cave person and they found it funny throwing rocks around, I'd feel like if I'm avoiding homeless people because they might be dangerous drug addicts, if in England I don't see evidence of that. In England I've never seen a homeless person punch anyone. I've never even been in a bar fight. I don't think so. Yeah. I don't really see violence in England, so I don't feel a need to threat it, because I don't see homeless people as being the same as cave people. But in America, some of it was quite bad. That in a way I did see it as being quite a similar thing to Neanderthals, and maybe my experience of being around Neanderthals would make me feel like I don't want to help them because of that. Now, you could insult me for insulting homeless people and calling them similar to Neanderthals, but if you actually were a Neanderthal, which I'm sure you were, but if I don't know who is and who isn't, but if you were a Neanderthal, I think, though, if you're a Neanderthal and you're a Neanderthal, if others are a Neanderthal and you're a Neanderthal, you see them as being the same, and this is just, violence is just part of your nature because of that, but then you change when you have more and more lives. But if you were not a Neanderthal, if you were a Homo sapien, didn't want Neanderthals to throw things at you, and then they do throw things at you, I think something like that would make you be more wary to watch out for these kind of people. And then when I go to America and you see homeless people that look like they might turn on you or say bizarre things, it might strike a memory of something that's happened, and you're just like, what, I'm going to learn from my mistake and stay out of it. But yeah, it all depends on different people's memories, and I've just waffled on.